As Jamie mentioned, we are live. Welcome to Cabbage Cafe. It is Tuesday, the 17th of November. I believe it's the 17th of November.
It is.
And another good show. I really appreciated last week's show. That election coverage, all the input we got from everybody. That was just good discussion, good information. Yeah. A lot of really good people interested in participating in that. It was good to talk to Matt. It had been a little while since interviewed him. He's been on the show, but it's been a long time ago, I think.
His activity level is increasing again with Michigan Normal and back in the community as well. So
good. Yeah, that's awesome. And we probably did not get to everything that with the election last week. Didn't get heavily into the state races with the cannabis and the end a little bit about the local stuff. But we might have some room to talk about that some more. But today is really based around the fact that Michael Thompson had his parole hearing today, and I think that went really well. And Richard DeLisi, I think he's had some distinction of being one of the longest.
He is the longest-serving cannabis patient, longest-serving cannabis prisoner in the United States penal system.
So he looks poised.
Dubious distinction.
To get out. Our own Rick Thompson here participated. I got to listen to it, but Rick offered an address, as did the chair of Michigan Dem Caucus, Mike McCurdy, and Redemption's Ryan Basor, both friends of the show and have been on many times before. And we're going to hear from both of them along with Rick about that. So I'm excited. I guess one thing I'd like to discuss a little bit before we get really into that related is, are we looking at the beginning of something, or are these unique circumstances, or possibly kind of an appeasement to this community? I'd like to believe that this is the tip of the iceberg, but until that actually gets rolling, until these guys are out.
Right, the beginning. This is the beginning of it, I believe, Jamie. There's going to be a huge amount of expungements, in my opinion, hopefully people released from incarceration. This is just the beginning.
Some of the people that are yet to be freed from Michigan prisons don't have as nice of a record as Michael Thompson does. They also are not likely to get a letter recommending commutation from the Michigan Attorney General. The gentleman from the parole board, who we know actually in our community, because he used to actually be the Michigan State Police representative in the House of Representatives back when before they got that horrible female officer that used to come in. I cannot remember her name, but man, she was tough. Yep.
Didn't she resign after the kid got killed with the taser on I thought she resigned after that.
Could be, but
she's a nice, smart person, but took on a pretty thankless position on behalf of the police department. I remember having a few interactions with her. It's true that Michael Thompson, had a good record in prison. We'll talk about that for a second, and that type of stuff. But still, a lot of people started off their journey with a little bit of cannabis. And if we don't think that it ever should have started because of that, then even though they may have had a few trials and tribulations, we can still support them getting out. That's for sure.
We certainly can.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deb.
I was just going to say, I don't know. I think it's particularly hard to avoid any trouble when you're incarcerated. I mean, they're up your ass all the time. You get tickets for just really ridiculous things. So it's impossible, I think, to stay really clean like that. Well, that's a big thing.
And he had received a ticket for something as simple as being in the shower at the wrong time.
That's what I mean. You can have
in that instance.
Yeah, I mean, it can be just something very, very simple, like you have a pencil in your possession you're not supposed to have. I mean, just something very small.
So when I started to talk about Mr. Flanagan from the parole board, he mentioned, that's okay. The parole board guy specifically said, I have never ever seen an sitting attorney general write a letter recommending commutation for a prisoner, and I probably will never see it happen again. My only point in saying this is to show how unique the circumstances surrounding Michael Thompson, and that future prisoners who are righteously going to go after as far as trying to get them out of jail may have a more difficult time because they won't have those type of assets. That's my only point.
Or maybe we have a special attorney general who might do that for more people if it's brought to her attention. Maybe.
At least you got this going. Helped to really support getting this going, which could be very helpful.
Yeah.
Right. Colin, what do you?
So
Colin,
he used the word. I just want to say one thing. He used the word remarkable when he was describing that too.
See, that's a good word.
Yep.
About
C-Mac, we just at
yeah,
the beginning of something big, or are we just kind of puttering around here?
I mean, I don't know how huge it is going to be, and I don't know if we are able to like actually see like the full like effect of it. Like just because there was like a bunch of other expungements we didn't really hear about, I guess, when they passed the expungement bills a couple of months ago. I mean, I hope that like that was kind of the beginning, and I hope that like we do get more cannabis victims cleared. But I mean, I hope it's like I feel like it's the start of the beginning. I mean, it's been going a little bit now, and I know other governors like in Illinois have done some expungement bills too. I hope that going forward, other states can even like we just saw like Mississippi finally get medical, and but like Indiana doesn't have anything yet. So I mean, there's still like quite a long way ahead of us, I feel.
It's difficult to get a community to start the process of expunging cannabis crimes if they're not even willing to admit that cannabis really shouldn't have been a criminal act in the first place. Jim Salame, you've been around for a bit. I mean, we all know people that are currently incarcerated and have been incarcerated. I mean, this seems like we have a new set of tools to work with. Jim, what do you think?
I think that the momentum is strong, and I think it'll continue that way. I think with the changing of the administration on the top level here in the United States with Biden being in, that helps. I think I'm aware of is it Connecticut that's including expungement in their legalization bill for cannabis? Is that what am I right?
It is an East Coast state. It makes sense if it was.
Yeah, but it's great to see something like that happen, because I think it's gonna gain a lot of traction, just with just a different perspective on the world right now, the change of the guard.
Here's what I saw in the Flint water crisis. I saw a lot of attention from national groups, and everybody flocked to Flint when it was the darling. And then as time wore on, they all went away, and nobody gives a shit about us anymore. And our people are still suffering. And I'm concerned that when Last Prisoner Project moves on to very deserving people in Texas and California and other places, and we don't have the national support of that group for some of our particular champions, it may be a more difficult struggle for us to get those people freed.
Yeah, I think Black Lives Matter will keep that going a little bit too, that dialogue, because this is obviously a racial issue as well, and that needs to be looked at and considered, and changes need to be made to help that move forward.
Yeah. Yep, there's a lot of movement nowadays, nationally and in different states, in order to correct some of the evils of our past as American citizens, including the drug war, including some racism. We can only look forward to the future and make sure that we're part of the solution. Nobody will forget about our cause if we are continually reminding about it. So our role in this has to be an ongoing one. It can't just be one and done. We can't, count our laurels and then go vacation at Torch Lake. We've still got to grind it out. Still got to be working hard. And through that, I mean, the different memberships that we have, when things like NORML or the Cannabis Caucus, Democratic Party's progressive wing, there's a lot of ways that we can stay involved and stay engaged. Just an observation.
Yeah. So let's give a little bit of background on Michael Thompson. We're waiting for a couple people to come on to talk about this, along with, and definitely want to hear about your thoughts on the testimony you gave and on the hearing at large too, Rick, specifically, of course. But a little background on how he got to where he is.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay,
I could go over too, but I know that you're pretty engaged.
Michael Thompson actually had a pretty storied history in the city of Flint prior to being thrown in jail this last time. He received the key to the city of Flint. You know why? Because he broke up all the gangs. He took 120 kids, gathered them together, and marched them in the streets all the way down to the Flint River, where they met the city police chief. And he said, "I give you my children and give these kids jobs." And you know what? He did. Those kids got employed, and they stopped a lot of gang violence for a while. And I had no idea until today. The guy that we were advocating for was such a community organizer. Now, you know, he was a Navy veteran who was discharged honorably. I know that it was said honorably at one point and then dishonorably at another point in the testimony today, but that was corrected to illustrate his honorable discharge status. So here's a guy who really was a contributor to his community. And then also, you know, was slinging some cannabis on the side, but who cares? He was a community leader, right? And then his buddy got jammed up. And in order to get himself out of trouble, he did exactly what you know what people do when they're in trouble. They flip on their friends. And he got set up for delivering some cannabis to a supposed bachelor party. They put him in jail because he'd had some prior encounters with cocaine earlier in his life. It made him a habitual. The judge originally had arranged, or there was a plea bargain where he was going to receive a 2-year sentence for these crimes. A 2-year sentence, and that was it. They got there, the judge threw out the plea bargain, said we're going to trial, and they ended up giving him 3 sentences to total 60 years. The judge threw out the plea bargain, overruled everything, and said, no, this guy does hard time, and that's what happened. Now, really, he was not charged for the cannabis. Well, he was charged for the cannabis, and that crime has already been that sentence already been served. But he also had a weapons charge. They found about a dozen guns in his house. They were packaged up. They were not easily accessible. People had owed him money for different things like cannabis or whatever, and so he would buy one of their weapons. Not only did they erase a debt, he put a couple of bucks in their pocket. And the entire time he's doing this, by the way, he's working a job at Delphi. He's working for the big 3. And after he did 6 years in prison for cocaine, he came out and then got right back into the job at Delphi and was doing a great job there. So here's a guy who was actually contributing to society, and then he got set up by a friend. And then he started his prison time.
It was like over 3 pounds or something like that of cannabis.
Yep. 3 pounds of cannabis, and then the weapons. So, you know, clearly
the cannabis started the investigation, and it led to associating the weapons with the felonies and all these circumstances.
See, that's where they get you.
They do, but they associate these things that. You know.
No, I get it, but that's how they're going to get us on the expungements too, because it's very rarely it's just a cannabis charge, almost never.
They structured the expungement bills, the cannabis end of it anyway.
Yeah, that's what
in a way that really excludes a lot of people from that opportunity.
Well, I remember the police chief here in Ferndale saying, we have never, ever charged anybody in the city of Ferndale with marijuana possession. No, not by itself, but you've charged it with a bunch of other charges, you know, and that's what they do.
Just because you're creative gives you deniability. It doesn't mean that you're expunged from your responsibility for putting people in jail. Welcome to the broadcast, Mike McCurdy. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Chair of the Michigan Democratic Cannabis Caucus, who also participated in the speaking at the parole board hearing today.
Mike, we normally ask our guests and our regulars here a single question to start off the show. And today's question was, is this the start of something bigger, or is this just, you know, one of those things? The DeLisi being freed in Florida, potentially Michael Thompson here in Michigan. Are we seeing a national move towards this, or are these just a couple of big high ticket items that are going to fizzle out after they're gone?
Well, I'm not counting Michael Thompson out till we got him out, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and is it the start of something bigger? Only if we keep fighting. You know, nothing's going to happen by itself. I honestly don't think it will. But if we continue fighting, you know, I hope we get this door wedged open, especially here in Michigan. We got Rudi Gammo coming up next in line, and maybe we can push the door open a little wider. And let's hope it's a sign of things to come.
We hope so too. Hi, Stacey. We're thinking, you know, Michael Thompson has a pretty unique set of data with an endorsement letter from the Attorney General. We heard exactly how rare that is today from the parole board member. Said he'd never seen it before and probably will never ever see one again. So Michael Thompson's got some circumstances that are pretty unique for us. There are some other folks that are going to be more difficult. Mike, you know that we've asked the Attorney General for a list, as the Cannabis Caucus, asked the Attorney General for a list of people still currently incarcerated that had cannabis as a compounding issue in their case. And it's quite an extensive list, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I believe it's over 1,500 names we have. And yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done there. We've got to sort through that list, and you know, I worked with the ACLU a little bit, and they've got a smart justice program where they're seeking to cut incarceration rates in half. You know, so if you think about it from that perspective, you know, I think we have 40,000 people in prison in Michigan right now. So, you know, from the ACLU's perspective, they're hoping to cut that in half. That's 20,000 people we still have to get out. You know, marijuana expungements is just the tip of the iceberg.
When you talk about cutting them in half, is that reduction in prosecutions, or is that actually attempting to pop people that have current sentences out?
It's attempting to get people out, and
Wow.
yeah. I mean, all of the above, right? So
That's fantastic. I mean, coronavirus helped get a lot of people out of jail that probably never would have been let out. Not because they were violent, just because the system makes it so difficult for people to get out. So,
yeah, I mean, if you were at Michael Thompson's hearing today, you see his case. There's everybody up and down the board agrees he should be out, and yet there he sits, still in prison. The structure is such that once it gets its claws into people, it doesn't want to let go.
Yeah, and it's not a return on investment either. This is something that comes at a cost to the citizens of the state of Michigan. It's questionable as to whether or not our safety is improved by having people behind bars. Certainly their safety isn't improved by that, but it's a financial drain too. So I think we're in a position now where we can actually have conversations in 2021 and going forward that we could not have in 2011. And we absolutely would have been kicked out of the room if we tried to have them in 2001. So maybe we are turning a corner. Stacey, we ask our guests oftentimes a single question so that everybody gets a chance to respond to the same question. And I'd like you to jump in on this. We're wondering, the DeLisi released Michael Thompson's parole hearing today, some of the actions that are happening nationally for expungement. Is this the tip of the iceberg, or are these going to be just isolated incidents and we won't see a whole lot of action afterwards?
Oh, it seems that I'm having my way, so that means that they're all going to be out soon.
I love that attitude. Good.
That is better than if that does not happen, for sure.
Yeah, that would be our optimal. Oh, no.
We're going to make it happen. We're going to keep making it happen.
I appreciate that too, and I think Mike was basically saying that as well. So we're gonna get into the Richard DeLisi story more in depthly just in a little bit. But were you aware? Are you aware of the Michael Thompson story here in Michigan?
Who, me? Yes.
Yes, Stacey.
Yes, very. Very little, but yes, I've been keeping an eye on that case today. I didn't realize that he had a hearing today, though.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we had, Mike, you'll back me up on this. There were literally at one point more than 50 people in that hearing on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams. They had 45 people that we couldn't see and 6 or 7 people out front that we could. It was probably one of the largest hearings that they've had from the parole board's perspective. So it was a really big thing here in the state. And I saw Michigan Public Radio, Steve Carmody was on there, a couple of other media people I imagine were there as well. It was a big meeting.
Well, that's a lot of hope.
Yeah, well, and it's a big deal because it's the primary last step before Gretchen Whitmer can sign off and give him his commuted sentence. This hearing has been holding everything up. It was basically her only excuse for not commuting up to this point.
Well, it's not an excuse. It was legally she was not allowed to. She's bound by the laws of the state of Michigan, and this is a necessary step before commutation can take place. So, but I'm glad she finally kicked the parole board in the ass and got them moving on this.
Do people know what the steps are to get completely released, though, like that are lay in front of them right now, or is it just this chaotic? Well, we'll have a hearing and then we'll decide.
They spelled it out during the hearing. Mike and Rick might be able to talk about that a little bit more, but they did talk about what would happen.
Yeah. The next step now, they have to get a transcription of today's event. Once they get that, they can present it to the whole parole board, and then next time the parole board meets, they can vote whether or not to grant parole to Michael. if they choose to grant parole or if they choose to deny parole. A commutation is still possible. As they explained today, commutation of a sentence by a governor is just a removal of the penalties, but it doesn't remove the criminality. There's still that is still there and still exists. So it looks as if the parole board might just grant parole. And if they grant parole, then I'm not sure that Gretchen Whitmer would be inclined to give commutation, because it seems like the purpose was served by the parole being granted.
Is he under parole conditions if he's commuted, though?
Oh yeah. He'd have to do as Ryan explained today. You'll have to go through the whole process, which a parole includes. My understanding of Michigan parole includes halfway house. You belong to the Bureau of Prisons for a while as you're on a monitoring system. You're not allowed to do certain things, So
Brian has joined us.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Brian Basore.
We are
Hey,
great.
can you hear me?
We can hear you great. They mispronounced Ryan's name today, so Jamie's going to lean on that little button for a
That's how
while.
my iPhone says his name. So
What did they call him?
Basore.
They had some Italian to it. Basore.
Oh, well, that's
Ryan,
kind of sexy.
Basore.
I've heard a lot of variations over the years. I don't know how people go to that Italian so much. So
Oh, well, that's okay.
You have that look.
Yep.
yeah.
So
How's everyone doing?
we're doing great, Ryan. We've been asking everybody that comes on the show a single question so that we can get everyone's answer to the same question. And the question is, we got the DeLisi case in Florida. We got Thompson here in Michigan. Is this just the start of something big on a national scale for expungements, or are these just really a couple of big profile cases and then there won't be a whole lot of action afterwards?
No, it's the start of something big. There's a lot of synergy in my opinion. There's a lot of synergy that is developing. Just from my little microcosm of corner of the world, but just what we're doing with Last Prisoner Project. Last Prisoner Project has determined that Michigan, based on support with people like all of ourselves, activists, the Michigan Cannabis Caucus, my foundation, and then so many other groups, and then having such a favorable AG and some other legislatures, that Michigan's going to be there, where they cut their teeth and try to get their prototype down of what they want to do in other states. So I think in Michigan, we're going to get a lot of attention, and that's exciting, but it's going to be spread to other states. Before I get going rambling too hard, I've been excited since I've lost redemption. The amount of people that I used to follow their federal cases across the country when mine were going on, and we've connected. There's Florida, the reformers, and all different types of drug laws and all over the country that have done prison time. And we're getting together and talking, and for some of us, it just changes who you are, and you become real passionate about it. So I think we're just on the tip of it. It's momentum. Momentum is building, and the way the elections went, and with the 5 marijuana states, Oregon, and then with hopefully a more lenient, which I believe it will be, administration. I think we're on the verge of something huge here.
I mentioned earlier before you joined us that Steve Carmody from Michigan Radio and several other media persons were on that video today, although they didn't give testimony. There were about 55 people, 56 people involved in that Zoom call at one time. There was a lot of folks. In my mind, this is good, because what we want is the parole board to be rewarded for letting people out of jail, instead of in the past where if they let someone out of jail, legislators from the conservative side would call and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe, what did you do?" So we need to show them that this is the right way to do things. And one of the ways we do it is through, positive reinforcement. Whether they're a child or a government agency, everybody needs positive reinforcement when they do good things. So I'm hopeful that we'll generate some positive media today, and that'll go forward. What was your general impression of the proceeding today, Ryan?
It was interesting. It brought back a lot of emotions and memories of me. I just thinking about what it would be like in there, Michael, and you're being directed around, asking permission. But they were asking questions. They're trained to try to trip people up, and get a bigger audience than normal. So I think maybe they held back, but I think they gave Michael a couple trip up questions and follow ups, and he handled it, I thought, really, really well. It was all positive. I think this is not a typical parole hearing that they're used to with, like you said, 50, 55 people, including reporters, and 40,000 people signed the letter or wrote in to get, asking for Michael to get clemency. It's powerful. Like if they don't, I'm learning, starting to learn how crazy the Michigan Department of, Corrections is. It's like, and the parole part especially, it's like their own entity, their own little fiefdom where they kind of do whatever they want, and it takes a major act to have them change things or push them. And so I think there's a lot of people been there a long time. Hopefully they're going to be retiring soon and getting some fresh blood in there like everything else. And, this is going to be a process, but it's happening.
Well, we brought you on real quick. I didn't introduce you properly. Ryan's done 3 years in federal prison for cannabis crimes here in Michigan, so he knows the system. Please go ahead, Jamie. I just wanted our viewers to get that background on him.
Yeah, Ryan, we were just about ready to talk about, and if you could pick up, describe what, if and when Michael Thompson is released, what what his life looks at for a little while as he gets back on his feet.
This is something it's kind of, I don't think it's decided yet as far as what his probation will look like. Is he on probation? Can the governor just go ahead and wipe that as well once he's out? And how strict that's going to be. But so that's kind of an if. It would be I would be pretty upset if this man just did 25 years for marijuana. And, it's obviously he's out, and it was a horrendous to still have him part of the system. So that part worries me a little bit. We'll see it, and this is all groundbreaking, and we're learning this, and this is going to set the standard or know what we have to fight moving forward. But he's got a lot of support. He's got money from Last Prisoner Project, money from us, the Michigan Cannabis Prisoner Fund that we all helped raise for. He's got money from California. I mean, he's got opportunities. He's got opportunities in the marijuana world if he's allowed to. It's more along the lines of what he wants to do with the rest of his life, and how he wants to spend it. So, that's the first thing I'd want to do is ask Michael what he's planning to do.
So it was breaking up for a second, but
Ryan, we're losing your audio a little bit, Ryan. I'm sorry. We'll have to come back to you.
Yeah, but one of the things that Ryan said was that after all the shit he's been through, 20-some years, we're all realizing how just extreme all this is. To like make him go through a strict kind of a parole thing or something like that after that would be kind of fucked up, although he's not sure exactly how it's going to be.
Mike McCurdy, you were at the hearing today, and they talked a little bit about potentially releasing Michael Thompson to his daughter's home, which looks like or sounded like that would be a really welcome thing for him to have happen. His daughter participated in the event today and gave some powerful testimony about how she wanted her father to get out. Is that what you think, Mike? Was that your impression from today's proceeding?
Yeah, that's my understanding. My understanding is that this parole board, they will issue a recommendation on whether to commute, give him a favorable reading on commutation. But it's just a recommendation. Ultimately, it's up to the governor whether to commute his sentence or not, no matter what they decide at this hearing. This hearing was a mandatory step in getting to the point where the governor can make a recommendation. But if he is recommended if whatever they decide, making the decision is key, and the governor at that point has complete and total authority. If she does grant him commutation, I believe he will be allowed to go and live with his daughter, and that will be the next step.
It's also because and what Ryan referred to before, one of the concerns of the parole board early on was his ability to be supported and to support himself when he got out. And a lot of that was covered today. That can't be a concern anymore. There's the fund that Ryan talked about that was done in conjunction with Last Prisoner Project, Michigan Democratic Cannabis Caucus, and his Redemption Foundation. And then there are other people from like California and stuff that he is being supported by celebrities and all types of people, that his emotional support and financial support is guaranteed at this point.
It sure seems like there shouldn't be any question on the parole board's mind about what's going to happen to Michael if they allow him to come out into the community. There were people there today basically offering employment opportunities, making sure that he had, support of a financial man, as well as being mentored on his way out too. I think Ryan kind of implied that he'd be willing to do that as well. I think other people mentioned that service too. And of course, one thing that some people didn't know is that the current mayor of Flint, Sheldon Neely, who is a friend of the cannabis community, spoke at Hash Bash and has done expungement fairs for a long time. Sheldon Neely is his nephew. So that's a very powerful guy to have in your family. And Sheldon Neely made the point to say to the parole board today, I'm the mayor of Flint. He comes out, we're going to make sure he has a soft landing, essentially is what he said. And I can't think of a better endorsement. Ryan, you're kind of chuckling, but you agree with that description, right?
Yeah, this is one of those things where if he's not granted, then no matter what anybody said, he wasn't going to be granted, So I just feel like it was a slam dunk. But, like my friend Mike that's on the phone, sometimes it's hard to trust them until they do it, because it is the government, and these are cops, and these are people that are professionals and putting people in jail. So I got my fingers crossed. I think it's good. I thought it was an incredible hearing as far as the support, I'm just.
You're just so just. I love that about you.
Yeah, he got a lot of good stuff in there before that cut out again.
Just.
Leave it there, or we could fill in the blank. Either way, it worked out pretty well.
I like the fill in the blank option because my mind works in different ways. But in any event,
It's interesting. It makes you think about the people that don't have the publicity that Michael does when they get out, and all the help that they have. And maybe that's why expungement's taking a little longer, and it's going to be trickled out as opposed to just being, all the doors open and everyone just gets to go.
Let me say this, though. The parole board guy, Flanagan, who, again, used to be, I'm pretty sure this is him, that used to work the legislature as a lobbyist for the Michigan State Police. Flanagan said Michigan is one of the states where we don't just drop them on the sidewalk and let them go. We have recovery services. We have people that specifically work with you to help you find good housing, and you have opportunities, and you won't go out there with an empty pocket. He made it sound like Michigan is really set up to be able to provide some of those services that, could really make the difference between recidivism or successful parole.
Excellent.
So I was encouraged by what he said. He really went out of his way to tell Michael about all the services and all the things that might be available to him should he be released. I'm curious as to whether or not the transcript of today's proceedings will be made public or not. He specifically mentioned some people's names that he had done crimes with in the past because it was required of him to do so. He's not ratting anybody. This is a necessary component of this, and I'm sure all of this information is already on public record anyway. But I wonder if they make the transcript public or not.
Maybe there's a statute of limitations anyway.
I think it was a public hearing and everything, and
Yeah.
if they have to redact names because of that, maybe they would have already done it because it was open to the public. If you simply, got a hold of the link, you could come on there and.
Yeah, there's an art to these things where you only give them the names that they already have, and you give them the same names that they already have repeatedly. Most people know how to play that game.
Sure, especially in the system where you've got a lot of people around you that will coach you the right way to
one of them
in trouble.
He's got. He said he was almost spotless in prison, at the exception of one thing, and it had to do with the corrections officer there, who he ended up kind of shacking up with, and it turned into this extra drug thing or whatever. But he said she had some pot in her car. That was all there was to it. I didn't ask her to bring anything.
So
with it, so
Go ahead, Jamie. You finished.
No, I'm just saying, but that like was considered relatively negligible in the larger discussion and so many years ago and all that kind of stuff.
Let's make sure the viewers have a real full idea of what's going on here. While Michael is in prison, he's such a good inmate that they put him on a driving detail. Plus, he's a professional driver. He did that at Delphi, too. So he becomes the leader of this driving detail, and he's so trusted that they run him from one jail to another with a female officer as they need things done back and forth. Well, he's a suave gentleman. He really is. And so, you know, Adam and Eve, baby. So it turns out that he has this affair with this female. And then suddenly she, you know, one day gets busted having a bunch of cannabis in her car, which he never asked her to do. And he never smoked cannabis in prison. And so they nailed him for it, right?
There's a lot of that going on in the prisons. My ex-husband was a correction officer. There's a lot of that, especially with the female teachers and psychologists and nurses with inmates. Oh my God.
So
Big
yep.
time.
So they asked him about this additional charge.
They
That
catch them a
happened to
lot.
you while you were in jail, Ryan? Is that what you said?
No. It happened where I was at.
Yeah, they catch them a lot too.
Not
because
as good a
the
story,
females-
but okay.
Yeah, they'll be stupid about it, you know, like they'll send them half naked photos and stuff, but they always get caught and then they get fired. I mean, it's just crazy.
And Ryan did have a flawless record in prison.
I did. I was flawless. I only
He just
committed
never got
misdemeanors. Yeah, I was only, and I was only committing misdemeanors when I was doing stuff.
Yeah, it's that Italian nature. They didn't want to get too close to him, you know.
Sort of.
He's kind of mobbed up, is what you're saying? Okay,
Right.
so Basore, he's a protector. Yes. Oh my goodness. All the different stereotypes are being exercised today.
Well, I'll say, you know, Michael Thompson wouldn't have gone to jail if Ryan Basore was the friend that the police got a hold of, because
That's right.
Ryan wouldn't have ratted out anybody.
That is true.
That's for sure. Otherwise, Jamie and Rick could be in jail.
Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart. Oh, you were gonna rat him out.
They had
You can
conversations
still
with
do
you,
it,
did
right?
they? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for having my back. I know
Got
I'm
it.
vulnerable.
I wasn't worried about
So
you.
statutes of limitations, I think, have run out.
I
by
didn't
now.
think Jamie would have made it. So
You weren't worried about me, but you didn't think Jamie would make it. Okay.
Jamie's pretty slick, you know.
I got the Kirk Douglas hole in my chin. I just realized today, someone told me that it looks like Kirk Douglas, my hole in the chin. So Spartacus, baby, the original Spartacus.
Yeah,
Nice.
okay.
So we can continue to bring him into the conversation, but I want to get into the Richard DeLisi story a little bit too. Does anybody want to finalize anything about? We're not ending that conversation. Does anybody want to add anything more about Michael Thompson before we kind of like get into the background of Richard DeLisi a little bit?
No. Just as I mentioned before, there's going to be a transcription before there can be a hearing for the parole board. So we're at least a month out. It seems like the parole board, full parole board, I only think meets once a month. So we might be able to catch their December meeting for this. So that was it.
And also great work by everybody too. Mike, I know that this is something that you poured a lot of time and energy into. I know that Ryan did too, and I know that our organizations worked together with the Last Prisoner Project, and that was spearheaded by you guys, and it's a huge success, great outcome, and really appreciate that work.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, I just think we all have to be ready. I'm not sure when the moment comes, but at some point we're going to have to blitz Whitmer with a last, sort of minute pressure campaign to get her to sign that commutation.
I think that, like Brian said, I think maybe they're going to give him parole, and whether that she wants to still do commutation after he's granted parole, I don't know. So, but DeLisi though, Stacey in DeLisi in Florida, he's going to get popped out completely, isn't that right?
Yes. How exciting is that?
Yeah, that's what everybody wants.
Stacey, just a little bit more of an introduction. Say whatever else you'd like, and maybe what you're working on right now. But kind of a nationally known activist. Certainly traveled the country, the cannabis, educating people, and bringing a lot of attention to the issue that way. I've had some time here in our state of Michigan, and participated in stuff here for a while. And I know Arizona quite a bit, Kentucky.
Everywhere, 38 states.
Yeah. Lots of places.
Yeah.
And one of the things you've done is help to support people, you know, as a prisoner rights advocate, and just being sensitive to the family, and doing what you can to do to help when you can. And the DeLisi family is one of the ones that you've been working with for a long time. What's the kind of the background on that? First of all, anything else you want to add about what you got going on, and then just give us a little bit of the story.
No, that's good for now. Like that's all that I'm doing right now. I'm focused on the DeLisi family right now, and it's super exciting. So it's actually like coming up on my timeline and stuff. 6 years ago was when we were in Michigan this time, getting ready for the Journey for Justice for Richard DeLisi. He had had a special hearing come up. You know, we had all been going mad with public support. Rick Scott, I think, was the governor then that we were bombarding. And he got a hearing that came up for the judge to decide that if he was unfair sentence, because he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. So the judge was going to decide if that was unfair sentencing and that it should have been concurrent, meaning that at that time, even Richard would have already spent a life sentence and would have been on his way out of prison. So we were leaving Michigan on the cannabis with several cannabis activists out of Michigan, and Sons and Daughters United jumped on the bus for us to do a Journey for Justice with the Human Solution down to court support for Richard from Ashley's request, his daughter. And his daughter is in her 30s now. She was 3 whenever her dad went to prison. So we went down there, and just a few weeks after that, before that, to back up, Ashley was busy in Kentucky. She had taken over her late grandpa's farm, and everybody was excited that we just knew that no one in their right mind would keep Richard DeLisi in prison, even in 2014. You know, he had already spent close to 30 years in prison at that time. And so she was busy at her house leading up to the hearing while we were getting ready for the Journey for Justice. She was just like digging her own post holes and build her own like acres, like fenced it in so she could get her and her dad a horse, and she did. And then she got her dad a Rottweiler puppy, got her dad a car, set his room up. Like she was just like being like, she was so excited that her dad was going to come live with her after this hearing. Well, 3 weeks after the hearing, they decided not to let Richard out. And that was devastating for Ashley especially, and a lot of us, because we just didn't really know how to wrap our mind around anyone. Just, you know, that was after Sanjay Gupta had been throwing his specials out and legalizations was happening. We just didn't think that there was any possible way anybody would have kept him, like thought 90 years in prison was a justice sentence for somebody. But yeah, so fast forward to now, 2.5 years ago, Ashley DeLisi was in a really bad car accident, and she had to have a couple brain surgeries. And during one of the brain surgeries, she had a stroke, and she actually died on the operating table a couple times. And that left her paralyzed on the right side of her body. And it's really like, there's a lot of hope that with a lot of rehab that she'll be able to get more use in her right side of her body again. But so Ashley's been away from her house for 2.5 years, and she's able to start working her way back to her home, but that's not possible until her house is ready for her. So for 2.5 years, her house has been with nobody. I was there last week, and yeah, it looks just like you would expect, like somebody left and never came home. And so there was a leak in her closet. So some mildew has happened, you know, at the house, and her roof needs fixed, and some ramps installed and some modification to her bathroom. So I've been in since 2014. Me and Ashley rebonded strongly, and we've been really good friends since. So I'm in contact with her regularly. So I was already planning on coming from Arizona to help her, because it's really hard to figure out your life from a rehabilitation center, you know, and how to get your house together. So I was already packing up and loading up and getting things ready to just come out to Kentucky and see how I could help her get her house ready and help her in general. And she got word from family that her dad's release date had been changed to May of 2021. So we got all excited, and we heard from the Last Prisoner Project, and through that conversation, we learned with like 20 days credit, because what had changed in the release date is they finally did it. They switched it from consecutive to concurrent. So he's already spent a life sentence in prison. And so now they were talking that with 20 days credit per every month, that he would be out by February. So I was on my way to Ashley celebrating that, your dad's going to be out by February. And then the Last Prisoner Project called us back. I would butcher, her name is Chiara. How do you say her name? But she's with the Last Prisoner Project. I don't want to butcher her. Huh?
Chiara.
Chiara. She's really a beautiful spirit, and she's been in contact with us a lot. And I apologize, I never remember how to say her name right. But she contacted me and Ashley and let us know that the right people listened, and every effort in the world was happening to have him home before Christmas. So that all got, like, during all this, and seeing Ashley, we heard from her dad, and he was supposed to find out officially the official date yesterday, but we haven't heard the official date yet. But the first week of December, first or second week of December, Richard will be out.
That's awesome. Yes. Dig that. Good news. And how long has he been in there?
31 years.
And what was like the basic situation surrounding why he was charged and arrested and so forth?
Supposedly had intentions of getting a bunch of cannabis and flying it in a plane.
Conspiracy to deliver a huge amount someplace.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 life sentences.
And so, yeah. So like the 3 different charges, he got a life sentence for each charge. Conspiracy, transport.
And he was going to drop a bomb on a neighborhood on the way over there or something like that. Something that might warrant that kind of a sentence. Just going to take some cannabis someplace is what it sounds like so far from what you're saying.
Yeah, there's total nonviolent, no weapons, no nothing. They didn't even have the cannabis in evidence. But I'm super excited that it's happening. No one should be in prison for cannabis. We all know that. And the time for them to all be released and reunited with their families is way overdue and needs to happen. But hooray, I'm so thankful that he's getting out. You know, when I first started diehard advocacy in 2011, it seemed like it was really far. You know, Richard's release date was 2080 something, 86, I think, or 84. And after that hearing in 2014, like he had no more appeal. It was all up to the governor. You know, it was so far away, it seemed. So I don't think that 8 years into mad public attention and all these different organizations, you know, across the map continuing to get involved and apply pressure, like 8 years. Thank God it only took 8 years, but I'm very happy that they're finally going to get reunited. And during this time that Ashley needs somebody, family more than anything in the world, that her dad is finally going to get to go home and be with her like magic.
Some stories do have happy endings.
Yeah.
That's a good
I know I feel almost guilty because like people are like starting to stress out again over COVID and all this lockdown madness and everything. And I am just so happy. Like I am just so happy and thankful right now.
Good reason to be happy. That's for sure.
And I mean, my timing, like Godspeed timing, like anybody that knows, like Godspeed, I just trust as much as I can. And to already be here, like my whole reason for being here was to be with Ashley and helping her right now. Now I get to stay so I can take Ashley to go see her dad when he gets out in Florida. So like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's like so many prayers are being answered right now.
It is. It's got to be awesome for the whole family and you and all the support and everybody who's been around and aware of this story. And it sounds so egregious that he had to go through all this.
Everyone deserves this. Every I'm like we talked about earlier, like I am staying totally faithful and putting it out there every day myself. I have been. I do every single day that our people need to go home and our people need to be freed. And like Craig Cecil got released this year because of COVID. He's not totally free. You know, he's still a life prisoner at the moment, but he's not in prison right now. So I'm just like, just staying like full of positivity and hope that this is the momentum that we are finally on and that people are just going to be popping out of prison right and left.
I hope so.
What we talked about earlier, it was mentioned like, oh, maybe it's slowed down. You know, it's not going as fast as we want because what are these people going to do when they get out of prison? And I'm thankful and I hope that they continue to grow, like organizations that I'm a part of, Freedom Grow and Zonka Miles, the Human Solutions, my organization, Cannabis Campaign, that as we work to get everybody free, we're also working to grow to where we also not only have financial support, but places to go and transition and resources out there.
What do conditions look like for Richard exactly when he gets out? What is his potential parole or what's going to be happening with him for the first few months?
So he still won't be off paper until February. And so he'll have to stay in Florida till February. So he's being released to his sister and he'll be there until February. And I got to listen to him and I got to talk to him too, but I got to listen to him and Ashley chat the other day, and his whole intention is to finish his time in Florida and come up to Kentucky to be with Ashley. He's so excited to be able to be with her right now.
Let me share with you an observation that I've made. I know Deb just stepped away from the camera, but I wanted to get her in on this too. I've seen commercials lately for companies who talk about hiring people who are felons or just out of jail. We've seen commercials on TV about this. It's very, very popular to be able to do that now. I know in the past, if you had someone on your staff that was a felon, you hid that. You didn't let the public know. Nowadays, it's a very, very important virtue signal. I mean, so we have an opportunity now for guys like DeLisi and Thompson and others to have a better opportunity for success. I mean, Deb, are you seeing those commercials on TV too, where companies say we hire, former prisoners?
I got to tell you, we fast forward through all commercials, political and non. So I don't see a lot of commercials.
That's an
Yeah, I'm
honest
sorry, I missed it. Yeah,
answer.
no, seriously, I don't even see commercials anymore. It's an
Colin
awesome
MacDougall looks
part
like he looks
of
like a television
2020.
consumer, right? Colin, nope, shaking your head. I'm the
No,
only
you
guy
saw
here
the
that
same
watches
thing?
sports on TV and sees these
Well,
commercials.
Dave watches sports, but I'm not paying attention for football and stuff. And hockey's over, basketball's over, so there's no baseball for us anymore. So I'm not seeing any
Sorry, I'm not
commercials.
going to
Sorry.
get upset over the Lions.
Yeah.
Rick.
Yeah, I don't watch that. I'm off doing something else while
I'm too
Dave's watching the
zen to
Lions.
be upset over a loser football team. I love Michigan State, so I have to be zen.
I just don't like football. Sorry, I just
No.
doesn't do anything for me.
I was using that as an example, though, to show
Well,
that
tell us
right
about
now
the commercial.
Yeah, tell us about.
the
I
world-
never saw these commercials.
I
world is a
haven't
little
seen
bit
them either.
nicer. World is a little bit nicer nowadays for people who have criminal records. It's a little easier for some folks to get employment. As we mentioned in the Thompson situation, the parole board guy mentioned all these different services that were available for people who were on parole or have completed their parole in order to help them get back into society in a smooth transition. So, I mean, I think it's good that we're creating tools to help people out. As always, I think we should be doing more. But at least in Michigan, I can't speak to Florida, but in Michigan, it seems like there really is a network, a support system out there.
Yeah,
And
I think it's got to be a tough thing, no matter how big your or how good your support system is. It's got to be really hard to readjust, and
Ryan's not on the call anymore today, but he talked about his time in a half house during his testimony
Yeah.
today, and he said
Yeah.
that several of his people, that his good buddies, bounced back into prison because they just couldn't meet the strict rules of probation.
so
Yeah, he
many
was-
people. Yeah.
He texted, he was interested in DeLisi. He's familiar. He's very happy and everything for me. He's had a really bad connection. So, but
Yeah.
he wanted to share that.
He'll view the video on file, which you can do on Facebook on our page.
So what's the latest? Just deviate for a quick second here, Stacey. What is the latest with the cannabis? Have you been able to get that thing on tour again?
Yeah, she's in Arizona. I just got her freshly painted because from being broke down, she had faded a lot.
Oh.
And so she's all like bright, freshly painted. And, like COVID has like slowed some things up and plans, but I think like Godspeed timing, now that Biden and Harris is our president, we're not going to wait anymore. They don't have 4 years to free our people and free our plant. They said they were going to do it, and we should really hold them to it and not, like I know when I would get like impatient or whatever back when Obama was president, like, oh, somebody was always telling me he's going to do it next year. He's going to do it next year. He's going to do it next year. And then even when Trump was in, like, oh, I'd raise heck. And
4 years of people saying, "Oh,
No,
it's
they
coming."
didn't say they
It's
were going to
coming.
do it, though.
I
They
just
never said they
really,
were going to do it. She's right. Biden and Harris have both said they're going to do it.
First
Both
time
of them.
they owned
said
up
it
to it.
publicly. Yeah.
Keep
So
the
I was
pressure
really
on. She's
excited
right.
about that
Yeah.
too, Stacey. Just because they said it, just to say it means it's real.
Yep.
so I
And
think
they
with
said
like
it.
the Richard DeLisi thing, we've all realized like it is in our face what we can accomplish all working together. Like even all working together in all different ways. Like if we all could like put our difference aside, accept the reality of today and what our our possibilities are, like we can hold our leaders accountable for their own words and not rest on them until they give us what we want, or they have no chance of being reelected. Game's over. Like they told us what we were going to do, they were going to do for us, and they need to do that We don't need to be patient. We don't need to be say, oh, well, it's going to happen when we reelect them. Like, look what, like with Trump, like that's what everybody told me with that, but he's not reelected. So now it's all going to start all
Was
over.
never going to do it.
Bullshit.
Never.
The time is now. Like the time is now, and we need to just keep storming the castle, keep showing up for each other, getting each other out of prison and reunited with their families as we apply that pressure, every amount of pressure that we can, you know.
I agree until it's done.
I agree.
Pressure on.
And that's said by a woman who's standing in front of a wall of knives. So you got to listen to what. I'm not messing around. I scoped it out. I saw.
Yeah, there's a couple missing there too. Where are they?
You get what you want. I dig it. All right.
Stacey, anybody on deck for something similar to what's happening with Michael Thompson, Richard DeLisi?
Lance Glore will be out soon. Hopefully, we have a whole list of, like, even if it's not loud on social media, just know, like, we do not stop, like, pushing, you know, making the phone calls, the emails. Through the last, like, 8 years, we'll probably, like, the last, probably 4 years, we've had these, we had to update it when the governor changed, but I myself have given out thousands of these. People sign it from, you know, they sign their name, they put what city and state they're from. We've given so many of these to the governors in Florida for Richard. And
Mike McCurdy, are you seeing that? You're looking at that?
Yeah,
tool?
yeah, I'm seeing it.
But
All
we're
right.
gonna make up, you know, really start, like, we're not gonna stop. Like, we've already been talking about making postcards. Richard's friend made these up and has been sending them to Kristen Floor to distribute for the last few years. And then, so we've decided that we're just going to do this, continue to do this for prisoners, continue to do the letters, the emails, work with organizations like the Last Prisoner Project, Mission Green, Can Do Clemency. Like, everybody's excited for what's happening. So everybody's just fired up and on a mission. Like, we're like all recharged over this year to like amp all the efforts.
Keep it going, yeah.
Why people like, oh, keep pushing them out of prison.
Man, I hope we just start falling like dominoes. So where is Lance Glore? Is he in federal prison or is he in
Lance
state?
Glore is in federal prison. He was following state laws in Washington, and the state couldn't, you know, they really tried to get him on charges, but he was following state law. So then they turned it over to the federal government, and now he's doing 10 years mandatory minimum in Sheridan, Oregon. And there's a lot of public support happening with him and pushes to get him out of prison. Unfortunately, I mean, that's why this shit has to end, because as we, you know, fight, there's so many prisoners.
Jerry Duval from Michigan is still in prison.
I know, and he's
Yeah.
got critical
Ridiculous
illnesses
fucking
too.
story.
Critical illnesses.
So just let me also
And
go
you
over
guys,
this.
you all were at that appeals hearing with
Cincinnati.
me, like in
Carrie Boyder.
Cincinnati. The
Yeah.
same
We were.
3 judges were like all on the same page. Like, how did this even get to this courtroom? And we all left there thinking like, oh yeah,
The lawyers did a
for
great
sure,
job.
They're
These
going to let
lawyers
him
out
out
of
of
Florida.
prison,
Yeah.
and they didn't.
So the sheriff, as sheriff, went there to their place where they were growing, and actually helped them to arrange things like in the greenhouse and stuff in a particular way where he said this is now state compliant.
You're describing the Duval case. Go ahead.
Describing the Duval case, Jerry Duval, who's still in prison, and we were just hit his appeal in Cincinnati is what she was describing. But the story that was described to these judges was, you know, the sheriff shows up, or the deputy shows up, you know, in that capacity as part of the sheriff's department helps them to be compliant with state law, then comes back as part of a multi-jurisdictional task force as like a deputized federal agent and busts them for breaking federal law. That's what happened to this guy.
It really is. That's the true story.
And Duval, they get like their family's so beautiful.
Ashley's wonderful.
I was wanting to keep all this like positive today, but like y'all had to bring up Jerry because
sorry, but that's
really
that's what we want to get to next, right? We want to get him on.
Yeah, like, and it's been tough because we, like during his appeal and stuff, he's been a hard one to advocate for because every time that we peeled efforts, he'd end up in solitary confinement and being abused in prison. So
with really bad medical conditions too.
He had a transplant,
I love his family.
Which
I love Jerry.
meditation.
I would love to be storming the castle for Jerry, but he isn't doing very well in prison. He did not do very well in all his months of solitary confinement. So he's in Lexington now, and even his family has a hard time communicating with him now. For his mental state, he needs to get out of prison. But there again, maybe that's another one that LPP can take the reins on and do their magic in the backgrounds, because public support seemed to get Jerry really abused in prison. And so that was a hard one for me. Like, it's hard whenever you love somebody and you're trying to do everything you can and you feel like, wow, being loud for somebody is getting him hurt,
Well, it's obvious how connected and how much you care about these things. And that's why you're so happy about the DeLisi situation. Because that's great news. And we'll continue working with the Jerry thing. And we brought it up. We don't have to dwell on it. We can only do what we can do there. But great work as far as DeLisi goes. I'm sure the family is just very appreciative of your support, and given all the circumstances of being able to be at the house and help out with all the things needed to get ready for that.
Yeah, next week it's going to be like putting on our work boots and rolling up our sleeves and getting it done. And this has all just been like super wonderful for Ashley, because it's been hard on her like the last several months, like keeping her spirits up to like do her rehab and do all the things that she needs to do while she's in there. And all this has just like lightened her up so much. So I'm just so excited for all of them.
That's awesome. I am really happy to hear that.
And thankful, super thankful, like to all of everybody that's on here is on here because of your activism and your heart to continue to care no matter what. And that's what got Richard out of prison, is all these people and organizations coming together, never stopping and never giving up until somebody gets to go home to their families. And it matters so much. So appreciate it.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that about Jerry. I didn't know. We did
prayers
that.
up every day for Jerry.
We did that big protest in Detroit. Tom Levine spoke. We had the cannabis there. The cannabis was there. Chuck Ream was there. Americans for Safe Access, when we were sponsoring that chapter. That was before the Human Solution. I mean, that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, Michigan wasn't even on our route that year until Carrie Boyder reached out for Jerry.
Yeah. Carrie came all the way from, I think was she in Oregon or Washington at that time? Or
Montana and Washington are the two states I'm familiar with.
So I think she came from Montana all the way to Michigan to help us with that protest outside. It's actually outside the federal courthouse, in the parking lot directly across the street from the federal courthouse in Detroit, because you can't actually do it on courthouse property. So we had a lot of media there. I've got a couple of photos that are just amazing of people speaking with like 9 cameras and all these mics shoved in their face. It was national news. But, we didn't get what we wanted then, and we're not getting what we want with Jerry now.
The time is now.
Well, I'm thinking about that. Mike, you mentioned Rudi Gammo.
Fuck.
Talk about him a little bit, maybe. What's going on with his deal, what we might be able to do with that, and if you know of anybody else who's on deck here too that we should be aware of.
Well, Rudi's case, for those not familiar, he was running a medical marijuana dispensary out of Detroit, and he had some renters that were renting from him in Oakland who were growing marijuana in the rental houses and supplying it to his dispensary. And the Oakland County prosecutor, a Democrat, decided to got to be up her butt, and Jessica Cooper, she prosecuted him. And he's currently serving, I believe it's a 5-year sentence. It's really tragic. The good news is we did defeat Jessica Cooper in her primary, and we now have a progressive prosecutor in Oakland County. So that's a sign of
Karen
things
McDonald.
changing for the better. And I believe Karen MacDougall will actually be supportive of getting Rudi released. So I think Rudi's he's going to be filing for his commutation here in the next month or so. We're really hoping to get Dana Nessel on board with backing his commutation as well. She's spoken favorably in the past and is definitely aware of his case. So
If he's doing something in a similar model as many people around the state at this time, and depending on where this might be happening, there might be no issue at all. In fact, it might even be welcomed into that area. And you could be in another place where people are willing to make a huge deal about it and really go nuts. And so they said stuff like drug house and stuff. But again, he just got a dispensary because there were 200 or 300 in the city at one time.
What's amazing is that his business, he was actually forced to sell his business, but his marijuana medical dispensary that he is basically in prison for running is still operational. And so
and he's not benefiting at all from that, right?
No, because he was forced to sell.
Yeah.
So and honestly, he was I think a lot of it was about the money, because the government was able to take almost $300,000 from him. So
Always about the money.
it's outrageous. You guys, I'm gonna have to duck out here in a minute. But I wanted to, if I could just announce something really quick tonight. I was actually caught off guard a little bit by a township trustee here in Meridian Township where I live. And tonight they have a hearing at 6 o'clock about potentially allowing recreational marijuana into our township. So I'm going to be, I need to get going so I can take care of my kids before I go to attend that hearing. But if I know some of you are here close by to Meridian Township, if you feel like attending our Board of Trustees meeting, tonight's going to be a big night.
Thanks for your testimony today, Mike. We appreciate it on behalf of the Cannabis Caucus itself and the state of Michigan.
Yeah, thanks for participating with this too and letting everybody know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon, Mike.
Good job.
Yeah.
We are having such a great show today, man.
So Mike, along with Zara Abbas, at one point decided to kind of revive the Michigan Democratic Caucus, and since then it's been really active and been participated in this whole thing. So that was very productive, and happy to get his perspective on that.
Yep. There are a lot of individual actions going on as far as activism and advocacy. Michigan Cannabis Association, the West Michigan Cannabis Guild, progressive wing of the Democratic Party, the Cannabis Caucus, Michigan Normal still active and doing things. There's just a lot of folks out there.
Redemption. Yeah.
They're, sort of looking towards the same thing.
Right on. Stacey brought up Human Solution. Man, there was a little time when that organization had a decent presence here in Michigan. I was kind of part of one of the groups, and even before then, I showed up at places in court support of stuff going on. But that was kind of a cool organization and a way to do it, and the people wearing the the green bands and all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah, I don't know if you could see it. I got my tattoo. Well, I don't know. Can you see my ribbon on my neck? I think it's on this side. Maybe it's on this side. Is there a green ribbon on my neck?
Yes.
There you go. Nice.
I'll show you too. Like, I don't know if you can see it. My friend gave me these earrings, and it's Snoop smoking weed
Oh,
yesterday. And it's so
Hilarious.
cute. They're so
Really?
cute.
Nice.
But what was the question?
Well, I mean, Human Solution doesn't really have much of a presence in Michigan anymore at this time. But you mentioned them. Are they? Is Human Solution still
Oh my God! Look at those. Are
pretty prevalent in other
hilarious.
places and still involved with that?
Yeah. So the Human Solution is still an active organization and out of California. And so a lot of us in the beginning of the Human Solutions, a lot of us that had other organizations or, other grassroots efforts going on, merged with the Human Solutions and trying to do everything under one organization. And the initial beginning of Human Solution was originally all about court support and public education and showing up for people. So they're still very active, as far as I know, in prisoner outreach and court supports. And they have chapters all across the country. I was their first traveling chapter. And but I can't be, I like to support all the organizations. Like the roots of the prisoner outreach part of the Human Solution branched off to Freedom Grow Forever. And I'm aboard on Freedom Grow Forever. And then another board member branched off, Della Falk, and she created POW 420. So the Human Solutions, like a lot of us came together to make Human Solution everything that it needed to be while all these court cases were happening. And public support and court support was needed so much, and you learned so much in court support. And through those shockwaves, all these other organizations continue to exist and grow, that have their own little niche. And I'm currently reorganizing Cannasense campaign to be a 501(c) officially, because I like to support all the organizations the way I want and help people the way I want. And if I want to support people with commissary on their prisons, I can throw it at Freedom Grow Forever. If I want to help efforts for a bunch of people to show up for somebody's court hearing like we have in the past, I want to be able to do that. If we need to buy a car for somebody getting out of prison, I want to be able to do that. Like I just want to, if somebody needs to go get their degree, if somebody needs help with their children, I just want to be able to power whatever efforts I want. I've always wanted that freedom. I'm not, I like to support all the organizations and not tie myself down to one. So that's why Cannasense is going to be doing her thing to continue to support and grow. Because even though everybody, cannabis prohibition's almost over and we're going to get everybody out of prison, there is a lot of education needed and family support needed. Of course, I have big goals to buy my baby cousin the farm that he wants of his dreams one day.
There you go. So were you paying attention particularly to the new law in Arizona from your kind of a deep connection to Arizona and a lot of the activism there and stuff? What are your thoughts on what passed there?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on what passed there, but I'm thankful that people in Arizona can grow again. at least some level, because we got Prop 203 was our medical bill that passed in 2010, and it came with a big 25-mile rule. So even though our medical program was written a lot like Michigan's medical program, we got, one of the things that we had that was different is the 25-mile rule, meaning that you do not have cultivation rights if you live within 25 miles of a dispensary as the crow flies.
So if your house happens to be within 25 miles of a retail center, you have no
Radius.
privilege outside
Yeah.
of 25 miles. You have cultivation privilege. So you really set up a system where people have two different sets of privilege.
Stupid.
So I'm
Ridiculous.
currently helping grow this eco village for veterans out in northern Arizona, and we just learned that it is outside of, or it is inside the 25-mile rule, even though Kingman, Arizona is the closest dispensary, and it is 36 miles from the door of the dispensary to the eco village in a car. As a crow flies, it's under 25 miles. So we just learned that recently.
What kind of shit is that?
So yeah,
Wow.
I'm thankful that at least like people can grow again, because that's needed. But and I'm thankful that, you know, it's a step in the right direction. It's definitely not everything that it's legalization. There's a big difference between cannabis freedom and legalization. And justice for anybody that knows me knows that I'm about justice for this plant, and it should have never been prohibited in the first place. There's nothing wrong with it. We should have the freedom to grow, consume, and share it however we want. And it should have never been part of the drug war. So, you know, nothing's ever going to be good enough for me until we have that freedom, that plant freedom that we deserve. And, but it's legalization, so it's exciting. And that means like a lot more 420 freedoms in Arizona. It also comes with a more law enforcement and people making sure you're doing what, I don't know. We'll just see how it works out. It's not implemented yet, so we'll see how it works out. And, you know, that's what I've learned going to court supports and reading all these initiatives all these years and stuff.
Good point.
And that it can say this, but it can be interpreted different ways. How it's implemented is.
Hey, we resemble that.
Sounds like
in Michigan, yeah.
Yep. You know, in Michigan, we were able to avoid a lot of things like 25-mile rules, like exclusive distributorship districts to emulate the alcohol industry. There were a lot of things we were able to do because of our strong medical patient community here who contributed to the language of the Prop 1. But in Arizona, I mean, this is the second time legalization got pushed. The first time it failed. Both of these were really business-centric legalization proposals. Stacey, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, the first time we voted it in like 1998, it was very people friendly.
Right.
And that's when Arizona said, oh, never mind. We don't care what you want. And they took it away. And then we had to establish the Voters Protection Act, so they couldn't do that to us again.
So the 25-mile rule is obviously the attempt of big business to try to capture all of that market as people that have to be drawn into the retail store in order to get their cannabis. It's also indicative of that type of misfire for those big business interests that don't know anything about cannabis, really, the nature and the culture and how it works, and think that that's a good idea when it's obvious to all of us that it's stupid. Blatantly
Right.
stupid.
And some of these new industry people, they'll try whatever the heck that the next thing out on the market they'll try to grow with and stuff, and they really don't know what the chemicals are and what it's going to do, and everybody's trying the new latest thing. And if people have the desire to grow their own plants or have an organic source, they should have that. A lot of this people going to the ER and being told they have some kind of cannabis deficiency disorder or whatever, or cannabis, whatever that is, that they're telling. It's just a big joke if you ask me. But it's nothing more than what's being used to be grown, it's being grown with. And the more industrial we send cannabis, the more industrial it's going to become, meaning loaded up with chemicals or different things that we don't want. You go to Oregon right now, and yeah, it's harvest season out there, and yeah, somebody hands you a bud, it might not look like as beautiful as one coming out of the dispensary, but smoke it, it's going to make you feel better than, it's going to make you feel like, oh, like cannabis is supposed to.
I think
Clean, good.
the old axiom is that, when you're growing industrial cannabis, the goal is to produce saleable cannabis for the least amount of money possible. When you're producing home-based cannabis, the goal is to produce the best quality cannabis. I think
craft versus Bud Light,
two different.
Yeah, and a lot of times people know that they're growing it not just for themselves, but they have a cancer patient that they're making oil for, or somebody with MS, so they're really mindful about what they're doing. More mindful than we're given credit for in public opinion, as far as like how we grow and the mindfulness that we put into making products for each other.
Colin, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just like going back and forth because I'm like sitting in a weird position. That's all.
You lean
he's
forward.
Not like getting interested. He's not like gaining interest and about ready to contribute anything or whatever. He just
they're talking about something interesting. I'll contribute, but right now, no. I love Colin. How about you, Jim? Jim, the concept of commercial cannabis, and sometimes it has a stigma attached to it. Sometimes deserved, sometimes not. There are good and bad actors on both sides of this particular equation. But what do you think, Jim?
I think that commercial, I don't know. You just got to find a better way to grow the flower, because it needs to be better quality. And I think the more people do grow, they do try to cost cut, and it's apparent. It shows up in the thing. But one thing I will ask is, no matter what, when you go to market, don't market your buds after they've been machine trimmed. Hand trim. And then take a picture for your marketing portfolio, whatever you're doing.
Be deceptive, yeah. Take a really.
So, Stacey, I like to make sure people are aware of these guys who we have regularly with us on this show. Are you familiar with the city council approval in Ann Arbor to make ethanogenic plants lowest level
no
priority? Well, it's because of the work of the decriminalized nature, and these guys were primary forces in that organization. That really
Jim and Colin.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course, in Washington D.C., What is the distinction between what was passed in Washington D.C. and what happened in Ann Arbor? We were going to get to that last night, but we never did on Medical Mondays.
Because Colin didn't show up.
Actually.
You know, Colin?
Evil.
I don't know if there's much of a difference. I know they're both decriminalized nature petitions, so I mean, I don't know how much different they are. I think that, they're a lot. It's a lot different than the Oregon thing that passed. We didn't really get into that last week either. So
right, and there were two things there. There's actually the therapy, the mushroom therapy.
Yeah,
and then decrim of all drugs.
Right.
Of course, you appreciated that, I'm sure, Stacey. Decrim of all drugs in Oregon.
Oh, heck yeah.
Go ahead, Colin. I'm sorry.
I won't lie. I've eaten mushrooms in Oregon before. It passed.
Well, didn't Jersey include psilocybin in their medical or their cannabis law?
Yeah, there was like a committee, and I don't know, there was some sort of psychedelic mushroom decrim.
Yes,
it's news to me. That's cool as hell.
That's excellent.
They tacked it on like a little rider.
Yeah,
Snuck it through.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to look into that for sure. Nice. Whoever did that, man. Nice.
Applause.
Cory Booker, I think, honestly. It was him.
I'm just going to say, when we started talking in this show today about whether or not cannabis prisoners are more likely to be freed now than they had been before, and whether it looked like America had turned a corner in some respect on trying to continue punishments for the old war on drugs kind of philosophy, the conversation we're having right now really does underscore the fact that we've turned a corner on this. We have states, entire states, saying mushrooms, no problems. Did you get that? Oh, see, that was terrible.
That joke.
I made Jim touch his face. Oh no, Corona. Oh no. Yes. No. So, but for sure. I mean, we
and if more people are okay with it, then those people have to be understanding of why people who previously engaged in that activity should be getting out of incarceration now.
Yeah.
Things should
Yeah, maybe it will be a requirement one day in the future that if you get elected to office, you have to go on a nice little trip to prepare yourself for your job ahead.
You know, one of the things we've talked about.
And you must have a healthy endocannabinoid system.
Jim is widely experienced in a variety of different alternating substances, but
he's on something now.
He liked my joke, so it means he is probably messed up a little bit. But I mean, we're talking about a system here in America where we shut down a lot of mental health institutions. We're complaining right now because the police officers on our streets are being asked to be mental health professionals in some instances to try and deal with this stuff. But instead of building more hospitals, maybe what we need to do is just expand the number of treatment options, including some of those entheogenic substances like mushrooms, in order to help people more adequately deal with things like PTSD. I know Colin and Jim are very familiar with some of the other substances that have been used in clinical trials and clinical treatments that have a lot of promise for, those Americans out there who don't have a bed in a regular treatment ward and are therefore just set out to wander the streets.
Yeah, ketamine is a big one now, MDMA. Cacti like San Pedro and peyote. There's a couple of different. There's a frog and a toad. The Cambo frog and the 5-MeO-DMT toad.
The Northern Desert.
Didn't you have some experience with that, Colin?
Yeah. Do I have to go over it right now?
No, purple and gold, right? Purple and gold,
I mean,
right? I remember. So.
It was a great story. You can go back on our former Jazz Cabbage Cafe episodes and find it. You might have to look through a bunch of them because I don't label them very well when I post them. But I mean, Colin told a great story about that.
But yeah, like what the decrimination petition that happened in Ann Arbor and DC, it goes into entheogenic fungi and plants, but also natural compounds and stuff. So there's arguments to be made that these aren't all kind of different types of natural substances that are made. But what's really cool is in Oregon that they were able to decriminalize all drugs, and I mean, I guess they didn't go as far as we wanted with mushrooms in a way, as some people are telling me. But I mean, I think it's a good step in the right direction. And
approved. What does the therapy mean that was approved? What didn't go far enough for people?
Oh, it wasn't in the therapy part. I think it was in the it was in the decrim.
The decrim part. Okay.
Yeah, it was saying there's an argument to be made that it's 8 grams of mushroom is the limit of that $100 fine misdemeanor or something instead of felony. So I mean, it's kind of with the cannabis plants and
how do they arrive at that figure, at that amount?
I don't know.
Somebody just arbitrarily.
I'm trying to figure out what a personal amount is. They only want to affect. If somebody just is using for a personal amount, they just want to give them either, as we know that bill offers, new law offers either $100 civil infraction ticket or help with it.
Well, kind of
Michael filed 8 ounces is 1 dose to him.
That's what
Yeah,
I was just thinking. I was like,
it
at least it's
depends
just,
on,
Breakfast.
yeah.
at least it's enough to do Terrence McKenna's experiment,
The
like
hero's
5 to
dose,
7
right?
grams. Like, yeah, the
Yeah.
hero's dose.
The
At least
hero's
it's enough for
Right, the
that.
hero's dose.
Right, but like if you think about it, like
No.
in Michigan cannabis laws, like with like a marijuana plant, like it's not gonna produce like 15 ounces or whatever, you
Right.
know. Like
Right.
if you're growing it, it's not gonna like be under 8 grams, you know.
Right.
Yeah, but now you can keep it if you've
Well,
grown
this
it.
is
You can keep
incremental
it, so
stuff.
it's fine.
And some people are going to really want to push those limits and interpret it in a way that's a lot more restrictive. And we've just
Yeah.
been through this process. We wish we could go right to what makes sense.
Can you
But,
imagine
you
the
really count on that.
changes and the evolution we will have when law enforcement can use cannabis versus alcohol? And when they do go through those traumatic experiences, that they can just go take a big hero dose out in the woods and get right with themselves versus
I've seen a
other
cop
ways that
take a
they're
hero
dealing with
dose
things.
in the
Well, they can
woods.
heal them their traumas.
Haven't you, Jamie?
Yeah.
You've seen a cop take a hero dose out in the woods.
We
I
did
have.
that.
Camping. Yeah, I know you have because I have
Former
too.
cop,
Yeah, it was pretty.
but-
Well, the cop is
So,
a cop is a
I just
cop
did
always.
some quick research on that New Jersey thing. It looks like there's a decriminalization measure or bill, or maybe it's part of the process after something passes by the
Yeah,
people that goes through the
That's what I was
legislature. Is there?
thinking.
So in the assembly, somebody added in during this assessment, during the current assessment, the up to an ounce of mushroom ability type thing. I don't have the other, I'm gonna read the whole thing, but I'm just trying to gather from it
Sounds
here
more
a little
reasonable.
bit. And it stalled because of it.
Reasonable.
Half the people didn't want to keep that added in. So it's stalled right now because of that. This is like yesterday's an article from yesterday.
Yeah,
So-
I think this is also great too for cannabis legalization nationwide, because this is now, we're talking about psychedelics that have even a bigger stigma, I think, to the public that it's not aware or educated on it than cannabis. And
Always good to not be the furthest guy out on the pole. Yeah, cannabis, but at least it's not LSD,
Right,
right?
right.
Cannabis.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go for
Yeah.
cannabis.
it's all moving just as planned.
Well, I mean, Jim, leading of the effort, and what we did with cannabis in a lot of instances was move on local cities and get city decrim first, and then sometimes that would build up, and then you get a statewide effort. But we're seeing in some cases people just going, whole hog right on a statewide level. So this sort of breaks the cannabis mold to a certain degree, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Just a couple mil.
We inspired people. Now they know that they can accomplish.
That's true.
Imagine what you can dream when you're on shrooms, man. Change the world.
See the pathway.
Apartments-
Pathway usually for a statewide initiative is a bunch of money. But a few that have been done with organization and just enough people that want to see that kind of change, and a lot of hard work still, but people who are very familiar with those processes and understand how to organize that stuff quickly and all that kind of stuff. But just people who want to step up and add something to the the ballot question. It's not simple. It requires a lot of signatures and a short period of time, relatively, and a lot of other.
Didn't it get harder recently than like when we did it? Like, didn't the
harder
legislature-
while we were doing it? Yeah, technically.
Yeah.
It's still questionable constitutionally what they did, but I mean, in the fracker case was challenging it up to a point. I don't think that's going on anymore, though. We could talk to
I
Luann.
remember something about it, but it wasn't something really good.
Yeah.
But something happened recently with it. I don't remember what though.
The fracking petition case?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was around the same time as us. They had some similar issues, some similar legal questions, and they were
Yeah.
challenging some things. And I don't know what's going on with that. I haven't heard much. I thought that I heard that maybe it wasn't even going on that much anymore. But if somebody gets to the point where they want to challenge that, then there's some
But didn't they try and do something where like the counties have to try and do a percentage? Like you have to get a bunch of people in the counties?
They tried that, but that is not a thing.
Okay.
I remember what you were saying. Yeah. So like when you're collecting
to-
for a statewide petition, you can't just go to like a heavily populated city like Detroit and
And
get
get
most
it
of
out.
your
Yeah.
signatures there. You have to get them from around the state, but that was
Right. X amount in each county, because conceivably, you could just do it in Oakland County. There's enough residents in Oakland County to carry a statewide petition if you really pounded Oakland County, but it would not represent the state. So that makes it even harder. Because what about UP and shit like that, way up north, and somebody's got to get up there and get those 3 damn signatures or whatever the hell it is.
Those 4 damn people in town.
Hey,
chase them around. Go ahead,
I just want to point out, I just did a real quick search here. It looks like Michael Thompson's case got a lot of attention today. We've got Free Press, MLive, Michigan Radio, Ganjapreneur, others too. So you're talking about those are press wire services. Free Press goes out through the Associated Press. MLive is UPI, I think, or it's quite a nice little set of coverage. When I mentioned earlier today there were more than 50 people on that broadcast, I wasn't kidding. They are certainly covering it pretty well.
Cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to listen to. I didn't give testimony as Rick and Ryan and Mike did, but it was really positive, and just I agree with everybody who's assessed it that thinks that this is going to move forward and turn into Michael Thompson being able to walk out. But
one of the big things that happened in this case was having the Attorney General Dana Nessel write a letter to the governor requesting commutation for this prisoner, and that came as a result of the Cannabis Caucus bringing to her attention this particular issue.
It's one of those things that it's a little quirky. I mean, he had a lot of attention before we had that discussion with her, and he was nationally known of, and the Last Prisoner Project was working on it. But it was the the direct conversation that was able to be started off with a smaller group that Rick and Mike and maybe Zara were involved in, and to really directly bring it to her attention, which resulted in her support and her letter to the governor requesting some interest into this case and stuff like that. So this goes to show you how some of these things can be set off. I mean, it was known about, it was very well known about, but the action didn't get sparked until it was like put in front of her face like that.
Yeah.
That's like you said, some of these things are quirky. You don't really know. Oftentimes we do a lot of public relations on an issue that we think is very prominent and very important, and we get nothing. And then the oddest little thing seems to catch media's attention, and they just so they are a fickle beast, and sometimes you have to tame them with raw meat. Well, you gotta sex up the story a little bit. You gotta make it something that seems like the media is going to be interested in it, just to get them to show up. So.
Okay, a little raw meat.
Yeah, I whore out Colin a little
nice
bit.
Nice headline. Yeah.
The murderer is going to be there wearing a tank top. Yeah, bring the photographer. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, Rick.
Little dude coming from the top. Nice.
Damn, that was practice. That's not the first time you've done that. But the reality is, for a lot of times we would have these great rallies in Lansing. This is in 10, 11, 12. It sucked that we had to have them. But you know what happened? Our friend, Michael McShane would show up. And McShane would have a crazy hat on with a bunch of cannabis leaves wrapped around it. And he'd have a cannabis necklace on. And guess who got on the news all the time? Mike McShane. Not the people on the podium, not the students or the children that were suffering.
To be more complete with your description, you'd also have this big-ass bell with him.
Yeah.
In later years, he got a what he called the Freedom Bell, and we would haul it around in my fucking car. He had a Vespa, and you can't haul anything around a little. So, but the fact is, sometimes you have to really coddle media in order to get them to cover the right part of the story. It's a bit of a trick. But I've read a couple of these articles real quick that were written about Michael Thompson's hearing today, and I think they got the right parts. I think they got it right.
Oh, I can't wait to catch up.
Yeah, that's great.
Man, it all looks like it's headed in the right direction, but as we, few have cautioned, we'll really celebrate when he walks out.
Right. Well, we didn't pop bottles. on the eve of legalization. We waited until for sure we heard it. We were worried about Dana Nessel Attorney General's race on the eve of legalization in 2018. That was
and then we just said, fuck it, we're calling it. Remember, we got tired of waiting.
well, and
We're
normal.
like, fuck it.
I see normal saying that they called it for Michigan, and everybody else is just getting upset, and we're just like, all right, yep. So
Yeah, fuck it. If anybody
raised
calls
my
it, it's
voice,
us.
decided to call it. Channel 2 shoved the camera in our face. We did the victory speech, and the people in Lansing are like, what? Okay, yeah, that's right, we won. Okay, sure.
Well, it's because they went to the wrong place. That's all.
Can you imagine going to a legalization victory party where there was no cannabis allowed?
Oh my God.
You know, the deal with Dana was similar to what was playing out with this presidential election. It was simply like the outlying, more conservative areas had their votes counted already, and it was closing in on like Washtenaw County and Wayne County and Oakland County, where a lot of the other votes for her were going to show up.
Yeah.
And that's what it took, because it hit those areas and it overtook the deficit, and she won.
Urban centers counted last, so it gave us a little heart attack.
They always do. Yeah, and they always do. And but you always,
It didn't feel complete, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no, that was fun. And, we were running around at Cannabis Council, and we would get an update on numbers. There would be with 27% of precincts reporting, legalization leads 57%. Yeah.
And there's like no way it would lose.
Making these big broadcasts.
Yeah.
I know. It was
I was
nervous.
I was nervous, Bill, and you kept doing it, and I was like, "Shut up, Rick! Like you're gonna
jinxing it."
That ain't happening.
I stayed in that booth the whole time.
Just room, and 3 more people would hand me joints.
Everybody must admit that best night ever. That celebration party. Oh my God.
Didn't want me
that was a Tommy Chong night too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. So Tommy Chong called in from actually one of our guys reached out to Tommy, and he did a broadcast. And so in a private room upstairs with a lot of the leadership, God, we probably shoved 25 people in a room that holds 12. And a lot of people were standing up, but there was a tablet with Tommy Chong on there, and we were handing the tablet around. Hey, Tommy, see Matt Abel?
Talking to Tommy. Yeah.
Tommy, see this guy over here? Yeah, isn't that great? It was fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
If we had lost that night, I would have been devastated.
There was no way we were losing.
I would have been hurt. But we didn't. We won, yay!
It was good.
Greatest night. What a night.
Man, it was pretty great.
Oh
yes, there's a picture of Jamie Lowell holding the Tommy
Jamie.
Chong.
FaceTime.
He's trying to make bunny ears on Tommy Chong's face, so it's not very nice. How rude is that?
Before Zoom was popular.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Skype
it was.
or something,
It was pre-pandemic, yeah.
Skype on a tablet, yeah. It was nice.
Right.
It was so great, though. And Tommy talked to everybody.
Yeah, he's passing around and talk to him.
Yeah, he'd talk right to you. He'd say, hey, what's up? And it was awesome. That was so great.
That was cool. Yeah.
We've been fortunate enough to interview Tommy multiple times on different programs, and also for him to be here at different events too. And I've never heard a cross word from him. I've never copped an attitude from him.
No.
Never once.
No, one of the first times he came back to Michigan, he'd been in Michigan obviously a lot, but the relationship that he got with Curtis and the BDT folks and all that kind of stuff, really started that. And one of those first times, it was a wildly successful meet and greet in Hazel Park.
Yeah, I interviewed him there.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I interviewed
with
him
Crystal
there
Proxmire. Yep.
Yeah, Crystal.
And,
she was a journalist, but she said, I don't know how to talk to him. I don't know what to ask him. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, oh hell yeah! And
of course, yeah, what a great opportunity. And there's other cool shit. Yeah, and there was other cool shit that happened there too, like. They gave him the key to the city, and like he handed it away to the mayor and stuff like that. But what I'm getting at is
awesome.
There was a line of people that were like wrapped around the block almost practically to see him, and it was getting late. But he said, everybody who's standing in line at this point is, I'm going to stay here and see. Mm-hmm. And he, the old man, although in pretty good shape.
John was there that day too.
Waited till everybody was seen. That was very cool.
That was a fun event.
Yeah,
it was a really cool event.
I've got a lot of stories about celebrities and cannabis that sometimes aren't very flattering, but there's a lot of people that are just really heroic in their style, man.
He's done everything, man. Everything possible. This whole entire spectrum of what you can do with cannabis, pretty much.
Well,
we had another cool event with him too over in Hazel Park. It's not in the tents, but across the street. where they
the
had rented out
restaurant.
their building. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then at the
What was that-
restaurant too,
Yeah. What was that
Very
place
cool.
called again? Mabel Gray's or
at
something?
Mabel Gray. Yeah, then
Yeah.
they had a lunch with him, but they did a meet and greet in the space where they were gonna have the museum. They've since, reconfigured that. But don't you remember it was across the street from BDT?
I do. Yeah, that was the first
Yeah.
part of it. Then we went to that
It was
lunch.
very cool. Yeah, and they had the
Darren
car
McCurdy
from-
was there too. Yep. And,
Darren was there. It was a lot of
Matt
fun.
Abel, all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was awesome.
Yeah, Curtis is always cool. He always makes sure everybody gets
We-
access.
We raised money for legalization for that. He gave us like
Yeah.
some spots, and then we like did like an auction style.
$2,500 for a meet and greet with him. Yeah. And one of my friends bought it. I mean, she like messaged me. She says, I'm thinking about going for it. And I'm like, are you sure? It's $2,500. She's like, no, it's a good cause. And I want to meet him, blah, blah, blah. If Colleen, if you're listening, I'm giving you a shout out. That was so cool. Her and her husband, they were so geeked about it.
I remember that.
Yeah. She did a painting
Bob
for him.
Johnson,
Did you
too.
see it? Yeah, Bob Johnson bought one too. But did you see the
Yeah.
painting Colleen did with, it was Tommy and his wife. She did like a painting on glass and presented it to him.
Yeah.
It was very
I
cool.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
so
cool.
that's my friend Colleen. Yeah.
Yeah,
She did
was very
that
cool.
Patti Smith painting I have over my fireplace too. She's like a local artist.
All that stuff just helped out legalization ultimately.
Mhm.
Raised
I did
money.
It did. It did. We
It-
sold like 3 or 4 of those. It
I
was
did some
cool.
work for Curtis recently, and as a gift, in addition to being paid as a gift, he gave me a copy of the Big Bamboo, the
Yeah,
record
awesome.
album. It has the big gigantic rolling paper in it. Yeah.
That's what I was about ready to
Don't-
ask.
yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
totally a
don't
complete.
use it. Yeah.
Oh,
just
hell
keep it like
no.
that. Yeah.
It's going.
Don't
in
even
a-
look at
Everybody
it.
used theirs. Everybody used theirs. That's why
Going in a
nobody's got one
frame.
anymore. So hold on to it.
Just,
No, in case there's no papers around one day, just
One day,
well, and the
just
album
throw a QP
itself,
up in there and roll that baby up.
the album itself is a different color too. The vinyl is like a, I don't know,
smoked one of those
vinyl or
before.
something. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Really awesome. Well, like I said, there
Very
are some
cool.
real awesome people in this community. I know there have been times Stacey's needed some assistance, and folks have stepped up to help the cannabis and stuff like that. That's is there anybody you want to give some shout out to right now, Stacey, that you want to give special thanks to?
Oh my goodness, put me on the spot.
No,
this
that's
list could be so long.
Any of your organizations, that anything coming up, stuff like that. Keep it somewhat limited, but go ahead. No big deal.
Just everybody in
Oh, that feels so
Michigan.
special.
You guys have brought up so many people, the Cannabis Council in Detroit. Like, we have collaborated on efforts together before, but also they've had my back traveling in other states whenever I've needed their assistance and stuff, or I've needed their advice on things. They're always a phone call away. I have other cannabis lawyers across the country that have blessed me with that ability to always be a phone call away. The Human Solutions, of course, they brought a lot of us together and helped shockwaves of a lot of power and activism. Freedom Grow Forever, that's Stephanie Landa's baby that I get to be a part of every day. And Amy Povall with Can Do Clemency. All you got, like, just I could just go on. Oaksterdam University, like Oaks. My Uncle Gary, first and foremost, because he sacrificed his life over the truth. And when I went to Oaksterdam in 2011, I learned that his death had inspired and had really given a lot of people the passion that going to Oaksterdam and learning that everything my uncle ever said about cannabis was true, and all the things that we could do to change things. They were teaching me, my Uncle Gary's niece, and they had been inspired by him to lead their lives so they could do so. So everybody, just the shockwaves, everybody that never gives up and continues to speak the good word, the truth, show up on every level. Just because we're all out there not doing the exact same things doesn't mean that all of our efforts are needed and have been making a difference. Yes, prohibition has been way too long, but we just busted a man out of prison who, was 90 years in prison. So year 31 out of year 90, and he's getting ready to come home. That's a good accomplishment for the cannabis community to pat themselves on the back. Anybody that took this time to even sign a postcard, and everybody that took the moment to share our calls to action on social media. The lawyers at LPP that decide to do pro bono work to help. You all to continue. I mean, since I've known Jamie and Rick, that's all they've been doing is writing and talking about everything going on in cannabis. All those shockwaves have got us here, and all those shockwaves will continue on getting us free and getting our people out of prison. And even though we have a lot to do and a lot of families still separated, I hope that everybody will take the next few weeks to just like love yourself and pat yourself on the back and celebrate the fact that Richard DeLisi is getting out of prison. He'll be meeting his grandson and his other grandchildren soon, and hugging his daughter from behind bars. And you can look in the mirror every day and say that you helped do that, because you did. In 2014, Jamie and Rick were talking about our journey for justice down there for Richard. And at that time, many people that didn't know Richard's name, they heard it from the first time and they never stopped saying it since. So just tons of thanks to everybody, everybody that cares about this plant and has been brave enough, even before it got popular, to do so, to talk about it and be about it. Thank you. Thank you.
Stacey, you said something earlier that's been bothering me, so I just want to get this out in the air, okay? You said you got the cannabis painted, but you didn't paint the inside ceiling, did you? Where all of us activists have signed that bus when it traveled across the United States, did you?
No, it's full of everybody's signatures.
Good,
I wouldn't
right.
cover that up. That's part of her energy. No, we just added to her, and that's what we're doing. We're getting ready for. I'm embracing Godspeed timing and knowing that she'll be riding again. We're going to put things together to get her riding again, and hopefully some more buses along, and I hope that everybody is about it in their local efforts and the big efforts, that we have a president and a vice president now that promised us to set our plant and our people free. So they told us that with they didn't just make us feel that way or make us think that they would. They told us that over the last handful of months. And if all this voting is real and legit, then their words mattered, and they got voted in because we need work done, and it's time for them to do the work. We're not going to wait 4 years for justice. And I'm excited that the bus is painted, because she needs to get ready to roll and
Nice.
and help those shockwaves continue. That just because you can go to a dispensary and buy a joint, that doesn't mean that we've achieved the freedom that we deserve.
Truth. Now, we're almost out of time for the show today. So, Jim, Colin, do you have any events coming up? Anything you'd like to let our viewers know about? Both talking at the same time. It's a problem.
Not at this point, but hopefully soon we'll have a event coming up for Decriminalized Nature Michigan and whatever other drug policy reform things going on in Michigan. I'm sure me and Jim will also be a part of.
Yeah, and if anyone is interested in any other cities around the state of Michigan or around the country, get a hold of us, and we can point you in the direction of getting help in changing laws in your area.
What does your shirt say? Will you show us your shirt? I've only been able to see the top here and there.
Criminal.
Oh, perfect. I thought it said
So-
decriminalize something.
There are like 9, 10 cities in Michigan with groups in them looking at trying to do something locally right now.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yep.
That's true. Yeah, all over the place. Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Detroit, several others.
Fantastic.
And then I just want to just point out, I think the electoral votes all are tallied like in the first week of December. So that's when we'll know that we're moving on from, the old guard to the new.
Well,
You'll feel a little
hopefully-
bit better about it. You'll feel like that next official step was taken.
I think that's when more like water
think
poured on the fire.
January 20th, where there's an actual like inauguration,
Fiction
removal
or
of the current occupant. I think is when
So-
it's official.
Well,
and that
I
will
think
put the pressure on him, like Stacey's talking about, to make sure that he comes through with the expungement. And
yeah, I'm just awfully glad we don't live in Georgia, because Georgia is about to undergo another 6 weeks of political ads as they fight to have those runoff elections down there, and they're going to get more nasty and more vicious, and there's a ton of money being dumped into there, so they're going to flood the airwaves, and it's going to be a perpetuation. I was totally done with the political ads by the time November 3rd came around. But I know, again, we're just about out of time. You can catch me, of course, on Jazz Cabbage Cafe here, but also on 420 Post on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. We do business-centric cannabis podcast. You can find that on YouTube or on Facebook Live. Jamie, what's up?
well, of course, planting Creed trees Thursdays 8 o'clock, and also the botanical company in Lansing is now one more solid step closer to opening. Just had the inspection today for the MRTMA license, and it all went very well. And so crew's getting ready, and opening is not exactly decided yet, but we are within days. Looking forward to that.
Stacey, if people wanted to follow your adventures in cannabis, how could they do that?
They can follow the Cannabis on Facebook. They can join the Cannabis Freedom Tour. They can check out the website. It's getting better every day, but it's new, CannabisCampaign.org. And to learn more about all of our cannabis prisoners, go to freedomgrowforever.org.
Now, of course, you can follow the Michael Thompson story through major media if you'd like. When you make social media posts, our viewers, please use hashtag #FreeMichaelThompson or hashtag #FreeMikeThompson. Either way. But this has been a fantastic Jazz Cabbage Cafe episode. We had some wonderful stuff to talk about. I always like talking about freeing prisoners from prison. It's always good stuff. Jamie, anything else before we wrap it up?
Another good show. I appreciate everybody chiming in. It's good to hear from Ryan and Mike earlier. And thanks a lot, Stacey. Thanks for hanging for the whole show with us, basically.
Yeah, thanks. It's been thanks. It's
Yeah.
been fun. Thanks for having me.
And we'll check in on some stuff, obviously, in the future. Hopefully, we'll very shortly discuss Lance Glore being able to walk out and others. So, all right. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Rick, again, great job. Thanks a lot. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
Cabbage Cafe.